going on, guys? Welcome back. We have another awesome podcast that's about to go down with Cody, Endless Evolution Fitness.
And I'm Nate with Become the Beast Fitness.
And we got some good stuff we're going to dive into today. So last podcast, if you guys tuned in, we introduced Nate, but we did forget his story behind his training business. And one thing that I always preach to people is you got to come up with something that's you. Because I think that, clients are buying into you. They're not buying into your knowledge necessarily. Obviously, knowledge is very important. But people are going to side with a coach and a trainer that they believe in, that they look up to, that they want to be like. They're buying into you. So I think you should put your personal touch on your business. And Nate actually has a really good story behind his logo. I remember our first mentorship, one of our lessons, we sat down and talked about that. And whenever he explained his story, I was like, dude, that's badass. That is great. Like, he has a really good story behind his logo. It's not just a logo and a name. So I'm going to let him take the mic and explain that to you guys, because I think it's just fucking awesome.
Yeah, so, going back in time, when I was 16, I actually got in a car accident and was hospitalized for 8 months. My left hand was actually degloved, tendons were severed. Multiple plastic surgeries on my face. My face was crushed, jaw was broke, so I'm really fortunate.
Yeah.
But the hand surgery, I had to, like, if you can picture Wolverine, I had 3 metal foot-long claws coming out of my hand for 3 months.
Man.
They had to let everything recalcify, and then had to break the pins loose and pull them out one by one. Foot-long rods. So after that, they had to go back in, cut it open, put pins in. To stabilize everything. So this whole hand's actually metal, and it took me 2 years to move my fingertips. And they told me, you're never going to be able to use your hand again, because I was a bass guitar player in high school. I was a big
man, yeah, that's got to be hard, man. Yeah. Especially having your whole hand.
It was
like
rough.
Yeah. That's rough, dude. Really rough.
So I kept pushing. It took me 2 years, and I finally was able to move my fingertips.
Yeah.
And that was the breaking point. I was like, all right, I've got this now.
Yeah.
So kept working towards it, and by the time I graduated, I had full control of my hand again. It was still building strength, obviously.
Yeah.
But from that moment, I always told myself, no one's going to tell me what my limits are. I will set my limits. So fast forwarding, into the business, I had dealt and dwelled in personal training in my 20s. Was never independent on my own. I was dabbled with a gym, had a bad experience with them, but then when I became down here in Tennessee and knew that this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, and I knew I wanted to go independent. I wanted it to be my company, my logo, my business. And on Sketchpad, I just kept sitting there night after night after night.
I've been there, man.
Yeah. Just ripping paper out.
Yeah.
And I kept sitting there, and, I was constantly staring at my hand. And you can obviously tell I've got the wolves on me, the wolf paw print. So that is also part of my heritage. I'm part Indian, half Indian, and I got a lot of that from my grandpa, and never wanted to forget who I am. Because his biggest thing was with society, if you lose yourself, you lose everything.
Oh, no, I agree 100%, man. Absolutely. Yeah. I've seen it time and time again, so that's one thing me and my wife are stern on. Is like, remember where you came from, man.
Exactly.
Like, not that I had a shitty childhood growing up by any means, but like, I've never had a lot of stuff, or like, I've been put in shitty situations. I've been through a lot. Mm-hmm. So like, I get it, man. You gotta definitely remember where you came from, bro.
So that was my constant reminder. This is my heritage. This is who I am. Don't ever forget it.
Yeah.
And I kept staring at my hand, and I knew I wanted to incorporate the phrase, something about breaking your limits, unleash your limits, get me later.
I like to unleash your limits for sure.
And it really came to me, I started picturing the wolf.
Yeah.
And then I remember, like, I'll never forget, I was just sitting there, and it was like, boom, light bulb.
Yeah, that's how mine came to me.
Was it?
Yeah. So you go through all these shitty names, and then I'm just like, I think I was like driving down the road, and it just like popped in my head, and I was like, that's fucking perfect.
And what it set it off for me was I remembered a metaphor
Yeah.
And what it was the lion may be the king of the jungle, but the wolf will never perform in the circus.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
And
yeah.
it's deep because no matter how rich, no matter how powerful you are, you can still be a puppet.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. Absolutely.
And so that was my light bulb. I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
So then I drew a wolf and I drew a moose, started playing with it, and then picturing the wolf, I was like, he's not leashed, he's not tame.
Yeah.
So I came up with unleash your limits.
Yeah, I like that, man.
You kept those with my hand, unleash yourself.
Yeah.
Don't let anybody tame you.
I like your business colors too, man.
Appreciate
it. I think that orange is awesome.
I'm a big Dragon Ball geek.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love Dragon Ball Z growing up. Dude.
So the orange and black was like Dragon Ball.
No, I'm with it, man. Like I said, I watched it growing up, so I think the orange really pops.
It does.
Now that you got it all set up and rock and roll, man, I think it looks good. It really fits you too. That's what I told you. Remember, when I was helping you with the logo,
right?
And then you were like, "Man, like I like this, but like I like what I have better." And I was like, "Hey, man, it's you. It's your business." I said, "I respect that, man." I was like, "I was just, trying to give you, a different look at it, a different perspective." But what I tell you,
because you didn't really know the story yet.
When I told you to stick with what you think is like going to be fitting for you, because again, you're selling yourself to your clients, man. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, so I kind of pieced all that together and, going with my hand. And that's what I want to teach my clients is do not ever let anyone limit you. Don't let anyone tell you what your limits are. Unleash it, break it.
Yeah. I think that story's awesome, dude, because we always try to lead by example for our clients. So, like, that's an awesome story that a hard time in your life that you overcame, So, and I think adversity teaches us a little something about ourselves, man, So,
that and strength and where it comes from.
Yeah, I've never, grown and developed the way that I have, like, better in other than, like, situations like that where I'm, like, really put to the test. Essentially, it's like, hey, like, either get with it or, get out.
Right.
So it's like one or the other, sink or swim.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people, obviously, you don't appreciate the adversity in the moment, so you're like, fuck, this sucks. But then you get through it and, it's a part of your story. It's part of your journey, So I think that's awesome, man. And I just wanted to kind of, spin off that and kind of, let them hear how you got into fitness too. Because I think, like you said, we were literally just talking off air before we started. We all have our demons and something that we deal with and why we got into this, especially bodybuilders. I think we all have something that we're not necessarily running from, but dealing with. The gym is a great outlet for everybody, especially like if you're stressed or, job's overworking you, you got a lot you're going through on a personal level, maybe with your significant other, maybe financially or whatever, like it's a great way to just blow off steam. And I feel like we all get into this on such a deep level because of something that we maybe went through as a kid or something that we battle, So, I think that'd be a really good movement forward.
And like Cody said,
tell your story and
there's always a trigger. Like Cody said, the demon that started it is really what you got to deal with. And like you said, with your childhood, you didn't have a lot coming from.
Yeah.
But I had my childhood, not to go too deep into it, but I distinctly remember I was 8 years old. And I didn't have a great childhood. I was a troubled kid. I was getting in a lot of trouble. And I didn't have a good family life.
Yeah.
So, dealing with an alcoholic father, an alcoholic stepfather, I had told myself I didn't want to be too weak to defend myself.
Yeah.
So that was my demon. That was my trigger.
Yeah.
And all we had around was the high school gym that I could try to go to. So every morning I knew the high school principal would work out 2 hours before school.
Yeah.
He was the only one in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I went there and I knocked on the door and I asked him if I could work out. And he looked at me and said, "You're too young, kid."
Yeah.
I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
So next morning I came back and I sat outside 10 minutes before he got there and I was just sitting against the wall waiting. And he came up, he said, "I told you you're not working out, you're too young."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, all right. The next morning,
This
went on for a month.
Oh man!
Like I sat outside that gym for a month every morning while he was working out.
Yeah.
And finally, after about a month, he came back out and he said, are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
are you serious?
Yeah.
I said, when am I going to be old enough? And his face,
Yeah.
he's like, get in here.
That's funny. Well, at least you didn't give up.
Right.
So.
I was, I was persistent. I was determined. I'm never going to be too weak to defend myself again. So that was what started it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he pulled me in and he kind of showed me some things, and I was immediately hooked. Like, I just fell in love with the iron.
Yeah, I did too when I first started working out, man.
Yeah.
I think it just like it clicks.
It did,
you know,
and it was a stress reliever for me. It kind of gave me that path of guidance.
Yeah.
And I actually stopped getting into so much trouble. I changed who I was around because all I could think about was, I want to get to the gym.
Yeah, it teaches a lot of responsibility for sure. I think that and sports, dude.
And I was obsessed. I would go to the Woody supermarket.
Yeah.
Couldn't afford the magazine, but I'd sit there in the aisle and I'd read the flags.
Oh, yeah, I used to do that all the
development.
time, yeah. I used to grocery shop with my mom, and I would I'll just read all the bodybuilding magazines. Like, she'd be shopping, I just read through the magazines. You know,
I would write down the workouts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And just go to the gym and start hammering them out.
That was back in the day. Now you got Instagram and pretty much everything's on the web.
Right.
But yeah, back then I would learn everything from magazines.
Yep.
So it's funny. Yeah, I feel like we all did that. Like, because you're just so hungry for knowledge. But yeah, I started working out at our school gym too. So I think that's really the only thing I've ever picked up and never put down. It just kind of clicked for me, and I was like, I like this shit. And I think what really sparked it for me, which granted, I'd worked out a little bit before I really got into it with like our Little League baseball team would go to like endurance stuff, and like we would do like workouts, but it wasn't necessarily weights. And I always enjoyed it because I'm competitive. I'd always try to like beat the other kids in the sprints, the sled pulls, tire flips, whatever we were doing. And then, high school baseball came around. And I was always one of the smaller guys on the team because I was a year younger than everybody. So I graduated at 17. So, everybody in my class was actually of age. I was always a year behind because my birthday fell in August.
Gotcha.
So I was already, naturally smaller than everybody else because everybody else bloomed before me pretty much. And first day of freshman workouts, I guess the whole high school, I was the weakest freshman on the team. I was also 14. And it just made me feel some type of way, dude. I was just like, fuck, I'm a pussy. I'm like literally getting smoked by all
Super
this
insecure.
Yeah, and it's like, I'd never really like worked out like that to that extent, with weights and like actual like structured program, And obviously I was 14, so I wasn't eating the best either, but you don't really know anything like that back then. So I think that's what sparked me, and I was like, I'm not going to be the weakest guy on the team next year. And I took it seriously that year. I had weights at my house, and I had a crossbow. Do you remember that? It's like a Bowflex.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like an off-brand one.
Yep.
I had that. I used the shit out of it. And I had like some adjustable dumbbells. I had just like your just standard like little home stuff. And I remember that year for Christmas, my mom asked me what I wanted, and I begged her for a weight set. I want a weight set for the garage. And they got me a 400-pound weight set for my garage.
Nice.
And I remember I used that thing every fucking day that summer.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I am not going to be the weakest guy on the team next year. I came back, and I was actually one of the strongest sophomores. And I ran and did all kinds of conditioning. I put myself through so much torture in the summer, and nobody else is doing that.
Right.
So they show up day one of conditioning, they're like fucking throwing up, like passing out, like, like they're just so out of shape, and I'm in the best shape of my life. And I spent that entire summer getting ready for off-season conditioning. And we were playing summer ball, but I was a sophomore, I didn't play much. I played like JV sometimes, and then, obviously I really didn't play varsity unless everyone was gone.
Right.
So I was like, well, I'm just gonna work out, get ready for off-season conditioning. And sure enough, dude, I came back and I was like making everybody look bad, but like that's what sparked it, and that like hunger for progression, and then it just kind of developed. That's kind of how I shifted into bodybuilding once baseball ended for me. That kind of sparked the interest for weights, and then it just carried over. It's like I've been an athlete my whole life, and when I quit ball, my life kind of spiraled out of control because I was like, fuck, I don't know who I am anymore. And I was already like bodybuilding, but I hadn't done a show, and I didn't really know all that much. I knew more than what I did at 14, but obviously I don't know what I do now, and I didn't know like what a structured program looked like. I knew how to train, kinda, not like for bodybuilding specifically, more like sports conditioning, like strength training. So I just kind of started to expand my knowledge there and shifted into bodybuilding, and it just clicked for me.
Yeah.
So, and it definitely ended my post-baseball depression. Because like when I ended, I was like, fuck, I don't know who I am anymore.
And I think that was what sparked the bodybuilding trigger for me was, because I wrestled in high school.
Yeah.
My freshman and sophomore year, right before my car accident.
Mm-hmm.
And I sucked. I wasn't good at it. And I was pretty small. But the weightlifting, I knew I can control this. Like, I'm in control.
Yeah, it's all up to you.
The matches was...
Yeah.
I didn't have the skill for it, but I knew in the weight room I can control this. So that was more what drove me away from sports into bodybuilding.
Yeah. I think it's a slow development for sure. There's very few people that just hop right into it. I think you'll see that more going forward because bodybuilding is more of a thing now.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, dude, there really wasn't any bodybuilders in my hometown.
No.
Like I was like the only one. I was like kind of the weirdo, you know what I mean? So like now, like there's a ton in our hometown. Not like it is here, but there's much more than when me and Alexa were coming up, So
there wasn't even a gym in my hometown. Yeah. The only gym was the high school gym.
Yeah. We had one pop up, and now there's like multiple other ones, So I think fitness in general is becoming more of a popular thing for sure.
Right.
And I think a lot of it has to do with social media for sure.
100%.
So, yeah. But, with our journeys, we've learned a lot of things along the way. So one of the topics we were going to cover is one of the things that we get all the time, and I used to say it, a lot of people still say it, but you got your hard gainers, people who gain really easy, just because of different body types. So, you got your ecto, meso, and endomorph bodies. I was going to kind of touch a little bit on that, because I know growing up, me and Nate were kind of in the same way. It was hard for us to put on weight. I leaned a little bit more towards ecto, but I was in between ecto and meso. As I would train, I'd put on strength pretty easy, and I'd build muscle fairly easy. It just takes, a lot of work and a lot of food for sure. And I think a lot of it when I was younger was just not having, a good program set up. I'm sure it's probably similar to you.
100%. Some of the mistakes we made.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So we're just going to kind of touch on that, because I know I get a lot of people who tell me they absolutely cannot gain weight. And I'm like, all right, well, let's fill out a 3-day food log. Just log, the items that you've been eating the last few days. Or if they're already doing that, I'll be like, hey, just send me over what you've been eating for the last couple of days, or send me your MyFitnessPal or whatever it may be. And it's just a bunch of bullshit food. So I think a lot of it is, yes, it might be harder for you to gain weight due to like your genetic setup, but I don't think that it's impossible. I think a lot of people think that it's impossible, but they're not actually monitoring their calorie intake, and they're not consistently hitting it every day, and they're also not filling those calories with good foods.
And
do you agree?
I 100% agree with you, and I also see a lot of the times where someone say, I'm getting 4,000 calories in.
Yeah, but it's shit food.
It's shit food, but when they actually do the food log and you break it down and you know the macronutrients, you're like, you're actually at like 2,700.
Yeah. And then
just
but they
uneducated,
think,
right? They think it.
Yeah, and it's like, it's 2,700 calories and fucking 80 grams of protein.
Right.
My wife's eating more protein than that. It's like, bro, you're not going to get big.
Exactly.
Eating 80 grams of protein every day.
I 100% agree with you on that.
Yeah, and I think, because a lot of the guys I get that are like that, they start seeing weight gain. Is it a little slower than others? Yeah, but like it's definitely, we're gaining each week, and we're adding good size, and I'm just pushing the food, and having good food in there that's digesting well, so they can actually handle that amount of food.
Right.
And also like, could be training related too. I know I made a lot of mistakes when I first got started. I had to hit the gym every single day. Like I'd work out like 2-3 hours. Like
didn't know what a rest was.
Yeah, and it's like, you gotta rest, man. Like while we're working out, we're breaking muscle down. When we're resting, that's when we're actually building the muscle. And that's one thing that I see with younger guys that come to me, and females too, and then myself included. I definitely did that in my earlier years. I was not taking enough rest days. Wasn't prioritizing sleep schedule, circadian rhythm, things like that are very important for fatigue management. So
Yeah, I definitely, I can recall this like night and day, all the mistakes I made. And I think about them all the time and I laugh.
Yeah.
Because in my early 20s, like I said, didn't know what a rest day was, number one. In the gym every day, pounding it. And I'm a hard gainer. Like we talked about, it's really hard for me to put on size, but I can lean out really easy.
Yep.
Super easy for me. And I always felt like the only thing that really grows for me were my delts and my traps. I could look at a dumbbell and I swear to God they grow, but my legs, my chest, my back were always my weak points. So I would just hammer them out, like twice a week workouts.
Yeah.
Everything that I could get from Flex Magazine.
Yeah.
Magazine
workouts.
Yeah. One, in your early 20s natural, you're not ready for those workouts, number one.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was the food. Like, I knew I had to get calories.
Yeah.
But I was shit poor.
Yeah, that's another thing, man. It's expensive to eat healthy.
It was. And so, one, I was overtraining. Two, every dime I had was going to gear. So what little I could scrounge up for food was a gallon of water, a gallon of whole vitamin D milk.
Yeah.
Sipping on those all day. And then my protein was 4 eggs and ramen noodles mixed together. So that was my protein, my fat, my carbs. And I'm like, all right, I'm getting my calories in. I got my vitamin D milk. And I did that for 2 years, man.
Yeah, I think the older you get, the more that you do this, you kind of start to realize that food is a little more important. I got to kind of prioritize things. I was the same way. I was like just eating shit food, you know, like anything and everything, especially in like high school, younger college year. Like the first time I went to college before the military, even in the military, just kind of eating what I get my hands on. You know what I'm saying? So like now, eating better quality foods, like your body's going to benefit from that.
Responds better.
So,
heals.
And you're also going to be healthier too, and then obviously fatigue management is going to be better too, because you can actually recover. So I think that's one of the biggest issues that I see when I get a hard gainer is like they're just not doing the simple things, the basic things, like doing them correctly. So it's definitely it can be fixed. I guess is what I'm saying.
And I had finally reached the point where I was like, okay, something's not right. What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And that was what actually led me into my ISSA certification. Back then it was like textbook. So you sign up.
I remember when I did mine. It was like that too.
Yeah. So you sign up, you get the textbooks in the mail, and I started studying. And I was like, holy crap, I'm doing everything wrong.
Yeah. You start learning, man. Especially like I got my degrees and stuff too, and I've read on the internet for hours and done things and experimented. Worked with different clients. Like you definitely, I feel like this is kind of one of those things you got to forever be a student because things are changing. We're learning new things. Everyone's going to respond a little bit differently, So you definitely got to be able to kind of pivot as needed. So, but honestly, I think a good quality program, you can put weight on any hard gainer out there. It just takes time. It's not building muscle is not easy. It takes a lot of time.
Patience.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be cool to get huge in a couple of weeks, but you're just not going to do it. That's why I think it's so admirable having a physique like that because it takes time to build it.
Right.
It takes a huge investment. It takes a lot of money, time, and just patience, man.
Pure dedication.
Yeah. Absolutely. So.
What about you, man? What body parts did you always feel like were your easy or your lacking weak points?
So I feel like my legs always grow really easy. Legs and definitely my delts for sure. I feel like what's been slow is my arms, but I feel like a lot of it was just training. Because I love like the heavy compound movements, and I trained old school for a long period of time, and I feel like I just wasn't prioritizing arms enough because like I gotta be honest, like, I love training arms when I was 16. And that everyone does, and then like I feel like the older you get, you're just like, fuck, I don't want to train arms. Like, I hate doing curls. I hate doing like all these tricep moves. But it is, you got to prioritize it. So I feel like adding volume in throughout the week rather than just having an all arm day, like kind of sporadically throughout the week, has benefited me. And that was just one small tweak rather than like destroying my arms one day. Hit them with my compound movements and then add in a few arm exercises across the week split. I feel like that's helped me a lot. But everybody's going to have those good body parts and the body parts that kind of struggle. You just got to find ways to kind of add that working volume in throughout the week, in my opinion. You want to add it in there where we're recovering, so that way we're recovered before we hit it again. But the more times, or I guess frequency of training that muscle group, it's going to be beneficial. If obviously we have diet and everything else in order too. So that's my take on it. I think it's usually a diet thing or a training thing or both, in my opinion. You know what I mean? So.
And the smaller muscle groups, they're going to recover and heal faster than the larger muscle groups. So yeah, you can hit arms twice a week, but whereas legs, you're not going to be able to hit those 3 times a week. The larger muscle groups are going to need those longer rest periods to actually heal.
Yeah, and if you do, it's just you got to be very meticulous about it. Probably one day where you're going ham, and then the other day is more like pump work pretty much. You're not going to train legs hard and crazy 3 times a week.
Right. And that was one of my big mistakes.
Shocking your central nervous system. And I think we all make those mistakes in the beginning for sure. I definitely have. I've done more things wrong coming up than I have right. And that's why it's important to have a coach. Everyone, it's easier to learn from somebody who's going to mentor you versus trying to find all this stuff on the internet. Just because, I could go online right now and read about something I'm already educated on and find 50 different answers on the same subject. And it's if you're a beginner and you don't know, it's okay, which one do I believe?
Right.
And all of them are a little bit different too. So, I don't blame clients when they come to me with a question of that's to me it's wow, that's dumb, why would you assume that? And it's there are people putting it out there that's true, and it's well, they don't know any better, they're ignorant, so it's I would probably believe that too. So they fucking put all kinds of bullshit out there on the internet, and it's easy to find
and the other
50 wrong answers versus the right answer.
The other thing that plays on that is everybody's different answer on the internet is that's the main point of a coach is one, when you trust them, they're going to be able to figure out what works for you, because those 50 answers, none of them might relate to your body style, your metabolism, your protocol.
And that's why it's super important to have a coach, monitoring variables for you. That's kind of why you guys have somebody overlooking everything, because things need to be swapped in and out as needed. Nate's a client of mine now, and I don't have him doing, the same thing that I have all my other clients doing. It's really tailored to the person. Nate was telling me today that, he enjoyed the way the training was set up, and I told him obviously to let me know if that changes, because, I had a client last week, I had to rearrange his training because he wasn't recovering well, so that split might work for Nate, it might not work for somebody else. You got to be able to pivot and change things out and find what works for that specific client. Right. So that's why it's important to have a coach or a trainer that's going to have your best interests in mind for sure. So I feel like we would have progressed a lot more having that. I didn't really have a coach up until I started bodybuilding.
And that's the thing, even coaches have coaches.
Oh, for sure, yeah, and that's why I have one, so that way I get my plan, and I'm not stressed out trying to figure out my shit. I can handle my clients. I'm not hyper focused on myself. I just follow my plan just like you follow your plan that I give you.
And now I have that outsider look with you, monitoring me, looking at me and saying, okay, let's work on this now, or let's go this direction.
Get that extra set of eyes.
Right.
Absolutely. So it's extremely important, especially if you want to take it seriously, to have somebody also to help monitor health variables, especially if we're using anything, PEDs to help, those things are really, it's a very sensitive subject. You want to make sure that you're following everything appropriately and doing it right, and you don't want to read on the internet, because you'll get on some forum where somebody's telling you, hey, take 5 grams a test, and it's no, that's not what we need to do.
Right.
We don't need to do that. So I think it's extremely, it's a good investment to have a coach help you guys, for sure. That's whenever I really took my game to the next level, is when I paid a coach to tell me what to do. So,
And having that, being able to find one that you can have 100% trust in is a game changer.
Absolutely, for sure. So, well, guys, hope you guys liked the episode. We will be dropping some more podcasts soon. If you guys want to see anything specific, please send us your requests. If you guys want to leave a comment or shoot us a DM,
Absolutely. Shoot.
Give them your Instagram.
Answer some questions. Mine is Nathan_Hyman, HEIMAN.
And mine is @_super_Cody. You guys got anything you want to see, just shoot us a DM and we'll make it happen. Thanks for watching, guys.